but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there. You can feel it.
Get up on out the bed and start to move your balls. Wake up with WURD and Solomon Jones. WURD. You better wake up now.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Wake Up with WURD. Well, Kawesa, it is the end of an era.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's time. The Philadelphia Eagles have fired Coach Doug Peterson, ending a partnership that delivered the first and only Super Bowl title in the city's history. Peterson was expected to remain as coach despite a 4-11-1 finish, but multiple meetings with owner Jeffrey Lurie over the last week left his boss unconvinced that Peterson had a sound vision for how to address the many issues facing the team, from navigating the Carson Wentz situation to fixing an offense that finished near the bottom of the league in scoring. Lurie was also not sold on Peterson's plans regarding his coaching staff either. So now the end of an era has arrived. I'll miss Doug. I'll miss his risk-taking. I'll miss the possibilities. I'll miss the excitement. But sometimes you just got to move on, and this is one of those times. I wish Doug the best wherever he lands, and I hope my team gets back to what it was. We got a hot show for you today on Wake Up with WURD. Dr. Delana Wardlaw and Dr. Elena McDonald join us with an update on coronavirus. Sports journalist Chris Murray on the firing of Eagles coach Doug Peterson. Congressman Brendan Boyle on the Capitol attack and what the next steps are. CNN commentator Roxanne Jones on white privilege run amok. Plus, clinical psychologist Dr. Nicole Tefera and Dr. Chandra Davis on how to talk to our children in perilous times. And as always, we've got you, our listeners, calling in at 215-634-8065. It's all free, 1-866-361-0900. Hit us on Twitter and Instagram at onWURD, or you can hit me personally at Solomon Jones 1. Watch us on Facebook at onWURD. But first, it's the big three, the news stories you need to know to kick off your day right here on Wake Up with WURD. Story number one, House Democrats formally introduced their resolution to impeach President Donald Trump yesterday, charging him with incitement of insurrection for his role in last week's riots at the U.S. Capitol. The impeachment resolution that the House is poised to vote on later this week is the Democrats' first step toward making Trump the first president in history to be impeached twice. Democrats also tried to move a resolution Monday urging Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from power, but House Republicans blocked the request. The single impeachment article, which was introduced when the House gavelled into a brief pro forma session yesterday, points to Trump's repeated false claims that he won the election and his speech to the crowd on January 6th before pro-Trump rioters breached the Capitol. It also cited Trump's call with the Georgia Republican Secretary of State, where the president urged him to, quote, find enough votes for Trump to win the state. In all this, President Trump gravely endangered the security of the United States and its institutions of government, the resolution says. He threatened the integrity of the democratic system, interfered with the peaceful transition of power, and imperiled a co-equal branch of government. He thereby betrayed his trust as president to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. That about says it all, Kawesa. I think that resolution is absolutely right.
Yeah, the resolution is absolutely right and necessary. I don't understand how someone can put your life in danger. There was a possibility that some of those congressmen and women were not going to be able to go home to their families because of what happened, and yet you still support this man and you still cape for this man. And I don't understand it. I think that no matter what happens, Donald Trump needs to pay the consequences, suffer the consequences for his actions and what he did. There is blood on his hands. People died because of him inciting this insurrection, this riot. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I don't care when they do it. I just know that I don't want my tax dollars going to this man, period, after he is out of office.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a tough one. I was reading up on that this morning, and there is this notion out there that if he is impeached, he can never again hold office. If he is impeached, he won't get his pension. If he is impeached, he won't get Secret Service protection. And guess what? That's not true. What has to happen is this. He has to get impeached. Then he has to get convicted in a Senate trial. And then in a separate vote, which would be a simple majority by the Senate, they would have to vote to take away his benefits. That's going to be a tough one. What I want to see is for him to go to jail because he committed a crime. He committed several. And so he's already under investigation in the state of New York. But taking away all his benefits is going to be a tough one because it's going to take first the House to impeach, which means they charge him with these crimes, the Senate to convict after a trial, which takes a 2/3 majority, and then the Senate to hold a second vote by a simple majority, 51 senators saying you can never again run for office. And so that's going to be tough. I've been reading up on it. We're going to see, what goes on going forward. But you know what I want to see? I want to see him in handcuffs. I want to see him go to jail. I want to see him pay the price for those 5 people who died and the countless people whose lives were placed in danger by his actions, which brings me to story number 2. The Philadelphia police detective reassigned after attending President Donald Trump's rally in Washington, which ended with the president inciting his supporters to storm the Capitol, called Vice President Mike Pence a traitor and a cabal operative after he condemned the violence and publicly lamented an officer's death. You're a swamp creature. I think she was trying to say swamp creature. And fooled us all. Detective Jennifer Guger posted on Twitter on Friday, according to a screenshot reviewed by the Inquirer before it was taken down. "You sold your soul to the devil," she wrote 2 days earlier. Guger's social media postings emerged Monday as the city's police union came to her defense, and Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw pledged to take swift and definitive action against any Philadelphia police officer found to have participated in the lawlessness that took place at the Capitol. The Philadelphia Police Department supports all lawful expressions of First Amendment rights, but the attack on the Capitol building went well beyond the rights of free speech, Outlaw said in a statement. "I can assure the public that a full and thorough investigation will take place and ask that anyone with additional information reach out to our Internal Affairs Bureau." Also, you had, of course, the FOP say something. Now, they ain't said nothing about, this riot and the riot was wrong and all of that. They ain't say nothing about that. All these people dying, they ain't say nothing about that. But they did say something about this detective. And here's what they said. "We believe she's done nothing wrong. And we await the results of a complete internal review," said John McNesby, FOP president, Lodge number 5. And he went on to say this: "We strongly condemn the violence and loss of life at the Capitol and hope those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Okay, they said that after they said she did nothing wrong by being there. So, I mean, try to parse that, if you will. Kawesa, this whole thing is crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the other part, too, is that, this is a woman who did background checks and she was, monitoring, social media posts. And yet you out here being reckless on your social media, telling everybody where you're at and what you're doing. What, huh? Make it make sense. I'm really trying to figure that out. But then this is somebody who is behind the scenes, making it so that people can, come onto the force. And yet you have this biased sense of thinking, and you're out here doing all this stuff. No, you shouldn't have the job, period. Even regardless of all that, how do you even have a job? So, and this is not a surprise because we know that, Philly officers, they be talking, they be saying stuff. And so this should not be a surprise. And it's just because of the fact that these officers do not face the consequences for their actions. And that's why they are able to run so rampant and doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And that brings me to story number 3. Federal officials are warning state and local law enforcement about threats of possible violence by right-wing extremists at a series of protests planned for later this month in Washington and other state capitals. That's according to an FBI document obtained by several media organizations, including Yahoo News. The situational information report produced by the Minneapolis field office of the FBI is based on information provided by what it describes as collaborative sources and was issued the week before a mob of Trump supporters violently stormed the U.S. Capitol It addresses concerns about rallies that the Boogaloos, the right-wing movement, plan to hold in cities across the country on January 17th. The December 29th report warns that some followers indicated willingness to commit violence in support of their ideology, created contingency plans in the event violence occurred at the events, and identified law enforcement security measures and possible countermeasures. Specifically, the report describes evidence of credible threats related to events planned for January 17th at the state capitol buildings in Michigan and Minnesota. So the reality is that they are looking at trying to incite violence at all 50 state capitals. So, you know, y'all just need to know that this is what they are planning, and this is what is happening. This is real. And here's what I believe. I believe they've been emboldened by what happened at the Capitol. I believe that our government has been frozen by people who are complicit with this mess. I believe when you look at people like Senator Josh Hawley, who had his fist in the air and was supporting these people storming the Capitol looking to kill his colleagues. I believe when you see people like Lindsey Graham, who's suddenly seen the light, but who supported this president through 4 years. I believe when you see people like Mitch McConnell, who did not really allow the Senate to go forward with throwing him out the first time that they impeached him, and getting a conviction in the Senate, right? I believe when you look at all of these people who've been complicit in this from the very beginning, including we now see people in our police departments, people in our National Guard units, people in the law enforcement agencies, and even fire departments that are supposed to be the first responders in our communities whose salaries we pay. Even when we look at the micro level, we don't know who these people are. And the only reason that we know some of them is because they have now showed their hand and come to this rally, this riot, this insurrection in D.C. But how do we know who the sympathizers are? How do we know who the people are who are supporting this? How do we know who the people are who are giving money to this, who are on social media with this? We don't know who these people are. And so in our community, we have to be vigilant. In our community, we have to be unified. In our community, we have to have each other's back. This is no time for us to be asleep. This is no time for us to be not in our right minds. This is no time for you to be sitting up all day smoking weed. Right? This is no time for you to be sitting up all day drinking beer. This is no time for any of that. You got to be clear-eyed. You got to know everything that's going on around you, and you got to be unified. You need to be checking on your loved ones. You need to be making a plan. You need to be, making sure that your house, that your community, that your people are safe. Because these people are planning to do this again and again and again until they are stopped from doing it. And because they have partners in the United States government, I believe that that was why the thing went so bad on Wednesday. Because when the Capitol Police called for help, before the whole thing went down, they said, look, we need the National Guard. Well, we don't like the optics of that. Nah, we're not going to send in that. Well, you send the National Guard when black people protest. Right? When they called for help on the day of, the National Guard didn't get there until like 5:30. Dude, everything over. Why did it take so long for them to get there? And so, people in our community need to understand this, that if there was ever a time for unity, if there was ever a time for clear-eyed vision, if there was ever a time for us to be looking out for one another, that time is now. This is not a game. This is not a joke. This is not a drill. The time for us to look out for each other, the time for us to take care of each other, the time for our prayer warriors and other warriors to be in place is now. I don't know how else to put it. We really need to understand that this is real. So I want to hear from you. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. This is no time for us to be out in the street shooting each other. This is no time for us to be out in the street arguing over foolishness. This is no time for us to be turning on our own community and on our own people. This is real. And this has been planned. And we just need to know that. So I want to hear from you, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. This is no time to be afraid. This is no time to panic. This is no time for us to, crawl up into a shell, but it is time for us to understand what's going on around us, right? That this movement by racists across this country has gotten to a point where they are now comfortable in engaging in violence. They are now comfortable in attacking state capitals. Remember what we saw in Michigan a few months back, right? What we saw in Michigan a few months back was people who were bold enough to plan to kidnap the governor. This was after they stormed the Capitol in Michigan the first time. They stormed the Capitol and they said, we're angry because you told us to wear masks. I wish I could make this up, but I can't. So really, it couldn't have been about the masks, really. It couldn't have been about, people trying to put in place some measures to try to keep you from dying from this virus that's now killed over 350,000 Americans. It couldn't have been about that. I think really what it was about was misogyny. I think really it was about this woman is not going to tell us what to do. This woman is not going to shut down our businesses, even temporarily. This woman is not going to be our leader. This woman is not going to be in place. It was about white male insecurity, in my view, right? We're not going to have this woman telling us what to do, leading us, trying to keep us safe. No, we'll do that with our guns. Well, your gun going to keep you safe from a virus that's going to kill you? It was silly from the beginning, but you had people who were serious adherents to this foolishness. And so that's what they did. We're going to raid the Capitol. Okay. We're going to holler in the faces of police. Somebody could have been seriously hurt then. Thank God it didn't happen. So after they were allowed to do that, they said, okay, we're going to go a step further. We're going to kidnap the governor. That plan was thwarted because they talked too much, right? And so, this stuff, man, all you got to do is go on social media. It's not like, these are the sharpest pencils in the stack, like they know how to plan something secretly. No, these are people who are, they think that they can just do this, get away with it, say it publicly, this is what we're going to do, and then go and do it. The question is, what do we now do as a society about it? What do we now do as a society to prevent it? Because here's what you have to understand, that part of the reason that America is a fairly safe place, right, is that there are some mores, there are some folkways, there are some things that you do and you just don't do, right? There is home training, right? So, you say please, you say thank you, you say excuse me, but when those social niceties are gone, when people feel like we can do whatever we want to do, we can just, as we used to say in the hood, we can just Brody. But when people start to feel like that and the social niceties are gone, well, that's one of the guardrails that kind of protects you from falling into chaos. And so what do we do as a society? What do the Democrats do as a party? You're dealing with people who are not nice, right? And who have no intention of being nice. And so what do? That's the question. We now know what's coming. The question is, as a society, what do we do about it? We're going to go to break. On the other side, we're going to take your calls at 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Have you heard about City Council's plan to build more affordable housing, repair existing homes, create jobs, and support small business? The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will invest $400 million in Philly communities. Read about it at www.phlcouncil.com/NPI.
Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. These locations offer free flu shots and coronavirus testing. Thursday, January 14th from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Mastery Charter School Pickett Campus, 5700 Wayne Avenue. And Friday, January 15th from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Deliverance Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report's sponsored by CVS. Some volume here in Philadelphia. Busy. Southbound 95. We're going to find a jam. Cotman down through Bridge. Again, Betsy Ross through Girard, all through the ongoing construction. Westbound 5 delays. 8th out through Broadigan Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill westbound near Jam University through 30th through construction. Eastbound delays. Montgomery through Spring Garden. Then again, delays between South Street and University. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476. Looking good this morning. Looking at the Boulevard Route 1 southbound. Watch for delays between 9th and Fox through that work zone. 55 northbound Deptford into 42. That is a slow ride. It pays to fill your prescriptions at CVS. In fact, you could earn up to $50 in extra bucks each year just for filling prescriptions. That's helping you made easy. Visit CVS today. Terms and conditions apply. Not available in all states. CVS.com/RX Rewards or the pharmacy for details. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Skies are clear and it is cold this morning. Temperatures in the 20s and 30s will gradually warm to right around 40 degrees at lunchtime, and with bright sunshine all day long, 44 degrees this afternoon. Clear and cold tonight, 28 the low Wednesday morning. Another nice day tomorrow, partly to mostly sunny skies up to 46, and even a bit milder on Thursday with sunshine and a few clouds, a high of 50 degrees. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
You're waking up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones.
Good morning.
Right now on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM
and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. We are living in extraordinary times, man, when you have a president who has really awakened a segment of our society that is willing to engage in violence in order to win political power. We've seen this before. We have experienced this before as a country, and we have experienced this before as a people. And so what I would say to our people is this, that really now is a time where you need to have some emergency plans in place. You need to have some organization in your community. You need to have some unity within the neighborhoods where you live. You need to understand what is going on around you. And so what I would say to our listeners is that you need to sit down the people in your family, sit down the people in your community, and help them to understand that this is serious. Help them to understand that this is not just about Washington or Harrisburg. Help them to understand that now is the time for you to love and take care of each other. secure your household, secure your communities, secure your neighborhoods, secure your people. It is about that, and that's not about panicking or anything of that nature, but it is about understanding that there is a potential for violence and really being prepared for that. And so I want to hear from you, though. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD. I think one of the things that is extremely imperative is that the elders and the young folks sit down together and have a conversation about what is happening now. I think it's important for, what is that? Lord have mercy.
Are you hearing something?
It is important for our elders to sit down with our young people. CNN with them videos that just jump up. It is important for our elders to sit down for our young people and with our young people and let them know where they have been, what they have seen, right? Because I think that history is a great teacher where something like this is concerned. I think that history will let you know exactly what it is you are dealing with. I think history will let you know the potential for where this can go. And so I think it's important for our elders to sit down with our young people and tell them what it was like in the 50s, what it was like in the 60s, what it was like when black people tried to stand up and say, no, we are not going to live in Jim Crow anymore. No, we are not going to live under these conditions anymore, and what the backlash was like. I think it's important for our elders to share their experience. I remember my grandmother, and God bless her, she's passed on now. Melanie and I were having this discussion, right, about race at the Thanksgiving table, right? And you know, we were discussing race, and they had one point of view, and I had another, and it wasn't an argument, it was a discussion. And my grandmother said, well, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about something else because I lived through that. And here's the issue. We need our elders to tell us what they've lived through, because guess what? We getting ready to live through some of that again, right? And so in order for us to really understand what's happening, we have to understand what has happened in the past. In order for us to be prepared for where we're going, we have to understand where we've been. And so I know it's painful to talk about what happened in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, but guess what? We need to know. And so one of the very first things we can do to prepare is to understand where this has the potential to go. And in order to understand that, we need to hear from our elders. Not from some fool who's telling us what I feel as though I think and my opinion. No, we need to hear from the people who've already been through this. We need to hear from our elders. That's number one. Number two, we need to hear from our young people, because we are in a place and in a time that is different, right, technologically, from where we have been in the past. And so while we can talk about the human potential for what people can do, we also need to talk about the potential of what technology can do, the potential of what our young people can do, the potential of what our young people know. And that wisdom from both sides needs to come together in unity so that we can formulate a cogent plan for how we get through this. Because we got some people, man, who feel like they can do whatever they want to do. And we have some people in law enforcement. We have some people in the military. We have some people in government who are complicit with them, who are colluding with them, who are opening the gates for them, who are helping them, who are backing them, who are working with them in order for them to wreak havoc. So there needs to be some conversations taking place right now in our community about where we've been and about where we're going. And while we have those conversations, guess what? We need to be walking in unison, walking in unity, walking together, because how can two walk together unless they agree? And the one thing that we need to agree upon as a people is that we love ourselves enough to survive this moment and to do it together. I want to hear from you. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. Glenn from South Philly is online too. Go ahead, Glenn.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to know how things have changed. It's always been that way for black people, but it seems like when white folks storm a Capitol and attack white folks, then it seems like black folks are more on guard to say, oh, this is appalling and this and that and the other. The white folks issued a no-knock warrant on the Capitol. Okay, we've been going through that forever. And you talked about attempt on the governor being kidnapped. It's over 70,000 black women and children being kidnapped a year, and nobody says anything about that. And that's
not true. That's not true. We've talked about that many times. There's an organization called Black and Missing, right, that we have had on our show numerous times. So to say that nobody talks about that, A, is not true, and B, is just a little bit insulting. But go ahead.
I'm saying white media doesn't even really talk about that.
Okay.
But yet, when they get attacked, right, the black media, oh, this is appalling, this and that and the other. Listen, these white folks have been doing it to us for God knows how long. But when white folks get attacked, it just seems like we're in an outrage and this and that and the other. I come from a place where you always be prepared. And black folks have to always be prepared. This is nothing new. This is nothing new.
All right, Glenn, I want to thank you for your call this morning on WURD. I want to hear some details, right? Like, you know what I mean? I just don't know. I don't know that helps. It's always been this way, and what are we, and what are we talking about now? Well, many of us, especially those of the younger generation, have never really seen anything like this. Kawesa, am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I think that that's why it's a little bit more, and I know that we keep talking about like why are black folks shocked and things like that, but at least in my generation, we see racism every single day, but it's really been like bold, like in our face, and we're just like, whoa, like this, whoa, wow, so it's not a shock, but I think at the same time we've never really had to deal with it on such a high level. Like we've dealt with it, but so that's why I think that people my generation and younger are kind of like, okay, this is a little more serious than we thought.
Yeah. So let's go to Derek from North Philly on line 3. Go ahead.
Good morning, Brother Solomon. Love, peace, blessing, and prosperity.
Same to you.
Thank you, Solomon. Solomon, that last call of Brother Glenn, I appreciate what he was saying. This is where the conversation begins at. He sounds like he's an older guy. Yeah. And so for him, he's been around for a while, so he would express it like the way that he did.
I got you.
Right. So that's where it begins, that we realize that. And I think that I've listened to Queen Kawesa's comment, too. I think that some of the young people are shocked in a sense. That's why Glenn had the approach that he did, because for a long time, I've been talking like how you were speaking earlier about what we have to do. And I think it gives a new meaning to man up. I think that you're absolutely right when you say we got to start talking to our people, our family, on a whole different vibe and approach or attention getter or whatever it takes. But we got to put some work in there and in our communities, because These things, the people who were waving the Confederate flag in the Capitol, you know, this was a dream come true for them. And it wasn't how it went all bad. It wasn't how it went all bad on January the 6th. It was how it went all good. It went good for them as far as they're concerned. They paid the dues and the sacrifice was made. Unfortunately, someone got killed, but that was the sacrifice. And so this, Solomon, it's just the fact that we have to realize that in America, there are a people here who believe that the war hasn't ended.
How about that?
They still hold, and you can, and in this millennia, you can see that is prevalent today as it was back then, because history does and will repeat itself. It's a matter of what you gather from it when it's repeating itself. How well you've learned from your past will determine how well you can live in your present and in your future. And this is what America has to realize, is that those people are still there, and America has to make it very clear that that was a wrong way of life, and by doing so, apologizing to this opportunity that we've won the Senate, the House, and the White House, and I expect nothing less than a second Reconstruction era, Solomon. Nothing less, because it's all there for us. The Congressional Black Caucus, they got to get on their bikes and get the wheeling, because it's practically there.
Okay, I hear you, Derek. I want to thank you for your call, and I appreciate your perspective, because I think you're right in terms of how our elders would express where they've been. I think the thing that we have to understand is that in many ways this is a different time for many of us who have not come from that. So Olanian from Nicetown is on line 4. Go ahead, Olanian.
Good morning. I can't agree with you more today. But it goes not only for us to listen to old people or older people, but for them to also listen to the youth without equating the youth to stupidity.
That's right. That's right. No, you're absolutely right.
I like what you said about niceties and politeness. Gosh, I wish you could tell some of the youth that I know, because I try to tell them about niceties and politeness. They are important things. And you said they are one of the guardrails from falling into chaos. Brother, that was right on time.
Thank you, Olanian. I appreciate your call this morning on WURD. Of course, people are weighing in on Facebook at onWURD. That's FORWURD, FORWURD. And Kawesa, what are people saying this morning on Facebook?
So a couple comments. Dolores Davis says, good morning, King and Queen and Word family. Solomon, you are so right. We need to be alert. It is already said that the democracy is weak, and we don't know whether the powers that be know our democracy is weak. So they can come in and make it seem as if it was these proud people. You watch them say, it's up to the United States, and they see that it is weakening. So that is one comment that we have here. Good morning to Atia Hicks, and also Gail Robinson says, yes, Solomon, you are 100% right. I always ask questions from grandparents and older aunts, uncles, and cousins. Idris Abdul Ali says, good morning. All Agent Orange 45 needs to be impeached so that he does not get Secret Service at the office. Also, we can't run for another office. And so so that he doesn't get into the White House. So that's what he's saying about wanting him to get impeached. Drop Squad says, unfortunately saying our elders failed us, economic inclusion. Then another comment, Wanda Flood is saying Glenn is right. We always have to be prepared. Atia Hicks is saying the middle age and the youth of today need to hear it directly from those whom lived through the 1920s, 1960s. We all need to hear and know the truth of history. So those are just a few comments that we have on our Facebook page.
All right. All right. So we're going to go to break. On the other side, we're going to talk with Dr. Elena McDonald, Dr. Delana Wardlaw, because the other crisis that's going on is coronavirus, COVID-19. Killed over 350,000 Americans. What do we do about that? Dr. McDonald, Dr. Wardlaw on the other side. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
You know that feeling? Like every door is closing and you just can't see a way out? Being unemployed, underemployed, or just out of school can feel like that. But when you find the right tools, suddenly everything just clicks. FindSomethingNew.org offers resources that help develop new skills. Skills that can position you for careers in today's growing industries, from healthcare and manufacturing to cybersecurity and alternative energy. Find your path to a new career at FindSomethingNew.org. A message from the Ad Council.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by CVS. Some volume here in Philadelphia. Busy southbound 95. We're going to find a jam Cotman down through Bridge. Again, Betsy Ross through Girard, all through the ongoing construction. Westbound Vine delays 8th out through Brodigan Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill westbound near Jam University through 30th through construction. Eastbound delays Montgomery through Spring Garden. Then again, delays between South Street and University. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476. Looking good this morning. Looking at the Boulevard Route 1 southbound. Watch for delays between 9th and Fox through that work zone. 55 northbound Deptford into 42. That is a slow ride. It pays to fill your prescriptions at CVS. In fact, you could earn up to $50 in extra bucks each year just for filling prescriptions. That's helping you made easy. Visit CVS today. Terms and conditions apply. Not available in all states. CVS.com/RX Rewards or the pharmacy for details. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Sunny skies over the next few days and a nice warm up too, up to 44 degrees with bright sunshine today. 46 with mostly sunny skies on Wednesday and partly sunny but still very nice on Thursday, up to 50 degrees. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. And I want to welcome you back to Wake Up with WURD. And we're talking about a number of things this morning that are in need of our community's attention. And one of those things is the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, which is still disproportionately killing Black people. Here to talk about it, Dr. Elena McDonald and Dr. Delana Wardlaw. They are both board-certified physicians, and they are twin doctors from North Philly. Doctors, good morning.
Good morning, Solomon. Good morning, Solomon. Thanks for having us.
Yep, you are so welcome. So, Dr. McDonald, I'll start with you because we're going to have some psychologists on a little bit later on to talk about how you talk to your children about, many of the things that are going on here in the country right now, things that are troubling. How do you talk to your kids about what's going on with the novel coronavirus?
One, we want to be honest. And two, we want to keep it as simple as possible, depending on the age of your child. Because children, they see what's going on. Children are very astute. They pay attention to what's going on. And it's very important to help them understand that there is a virus that's going around that is harming people, and unfortunately people are dying from it. And in order for us to stay safe, we have to do these things. Never before have they been told that they can't go to school, can't hang out with their friends, can't go to see grandparents. So it's important that they understand that they're just not, they're not being punished. It's just that these are things that we have to do in order for us to remain healthy. And again, depending if you have a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, your discussion changes, but the point is still the same. There's a deadly virus that could potentially harm all of us, and these are the things that we need to do to stay safe. Yeah. Now, you want to give your children a chance to express their feelings. A lot of our children are sad, upset, angry, nervous, anxious, because they just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we want to try to have a sense of structure amidst the world of chaos that we're all trying to navigate every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so part of what is happening is that adults also really don't know what's going on, don't know, really how to deal with this. And so, Dr. Wardlaw, as we move further into this, and people are tired of the restrictions, tired of wearing masks, tired of wearing gloves, tired of, not being able to go the places that they normally would go, do the things they normally would do. How do you talk to adults about this as this drags on?
Yes, we have to have candid conversations and let people know, yes, that we all feel the frustration. We're all experiencing this all together. It's a challenge for everyone. However, I think that we all have to make sure that it's okay to express our feelings. It's okay to make sure that we are engaging in behaviors to release those frustrations. I think one of the silver linings about the pandemic is that people are becoming more open about talking about mental health issues, talking about the anxiety, the depression, the isolation. Sometimes in the African-American community, that's another issue that we have. It's taboo, or, it's not acceptable to talk about the psychological issues or mental issues or talk about seeing a therapist. I think that the pandemic has opened up a door where it's okay to talk about these things, and making sure that we're using technology to stay connected, making sure that we're checking on our elders, because, social distancing doesn't mean that we have to socially isolate. And we have to use the tools that we have available to us to make sure that we stay connected. And please, if you're having concerns or feeling extremely down, extremely anxious, make sure that you talk to your doctor and have a discussion so that these issues can be addressed.
Yeah. And so we are still at a point where the vaccine is not getting out in a way that seems to be organized, in a way that seems to be efficient. And so what is going on with the vaccine distribution? Dr. McDonald, I'll start with you, and then Dr. Wardlaw.
So, of course, we have been anticipating this vaccine is going to come out for months. The vaccine comes out, and then the big question is how do you get it from the pharmaceutical companies into people's arms? And what we're realizing is that it is not as easy as people thought it would be. We're starting with the healthcare workers, the essential healthcare workers on the front line, and then, of course, people in the nursing homes, because they were devastated the most throughout this pandemic. But their vaccine is not getting out fast enough. So, you have to look at your local government to say, and the federal government to say, what are we putting in place to move this along quicker? Because the pandemic has not slowed down one bit. So what regulation and protocols are we putting in place? Now, one big thing that came out of this is doctors and nurses and people who were associated with hospitals were able to get their vaccine. However, if you were not associated with a hospital, doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and medical assistants, they didn't have a place to go. They were not able to register. So that had to be addressed. As we try to address this huge problem, lots of things are falling through the cracks. So we have to figure out how to mass distribute this vaccine. And I don't think we figured that out just yet, Solomon. And I do know over the weekend, they did have a mass vaccination site at the convention center, which I was happy to see. Large amounts of people can come down and get vaccinated at one time. But we need multiple mass vaccination sites in order to get enough people vaccinated to get us to herd immunity, because we're nowhere near that yet.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Wardlaw?
Well, I think that a big part of this issue is, which has been the theme with this whole pandemic, there isn't consistency. We need standard policies and procedures across the board. We didn't have it with testing. We didn't have it with mask mandates. And now here we go. We see it again with the vaccine rollout. So I think that we need specific more guidance, more protocols from federal government. I think these policies and procedures need to be put in place. I think that there has been a breakdown there. And as Dr. McDonald stated, there has been a step up with the mass vaccination site that happened over the weekend at the convention center for the healthcare people who weren't connected directly to a hospital or to a facility. So things are starting to move, but I think that in order for it to move more effectively, we need to have a standard policy and protocol across the board. I know that some of the holidays had, played into people being able to get vaccinated as well, but I think that standard policies and protocols across the board will allow for things to be more effective.
Yeah.
And we have to stop being reactive. We have to be proactive. We have to get plans in place in a more efficient manner.
And I often think, Solomon, the military is very regimented. Maybe the military or FEMA can help assist with this as well. But again, that would have to come from federal government, some federal government guidelines. We've never been through a mass vaccination process like this before in my lifetime. So
Right.
I think that the guidance has to come from the top. And we've seen from the beginning that guidance has just been lacking throughout the whole pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Dr. Elena McDonald and Dr. Delana Wardlaw. They are board-certified physicians, and they are twin doctors from North Philadelphia. And so, Dr. Wardlaw, I'll ask you this. The vast majority of people who are getting the vaccine are white people at this point. Some of that is because black people are still, leery of this vaccine, leery of the medical industry as a whole. What do we do to address the racial disparities that we continue to see with disease that is disproportionately killing black people?
Well, I think that we need to have these continued conversations about the racial disparities that exist. We need to make sure that medical establishment and medical communities are recognizing these disparities, recognizing the implicit bias. And again, policies and procedures and standard protocols have to be put in place. And these institutions across the medical establishment as well to make sure that everyone is receiving the standard of care. Systemic racism and institutional racism is not an individual problem. It's an institution problem. So it can't be we just address one person or address one department. It has to be across the board. And then people have to be held to the fire, making sure that policy and procedures are reviewed on a repeated basis to make sure that they are effective. If they're not effective, making sure policy changes are put into place. And also making sure that cultural competency is recognized. We have, the studies have shown that African Americans do better with doctors who are culturally competent or doctors that they have something in common with. But again, the numbers are not on our side because African American doctors only make up 5% of the population, and African American females only make up 2% of the physician population in this country. So, but that means that everyone has to be on the same page, and we have to make sure that standard protocols are put in place so that everybody receives the same standard of care. And with this vaccine, make sure that the vaccine is equitably rolled out and making sure it is being offered in areas that are disproportionately affected, making sure that it's being offered in urban areas, making sure that it's being offered in areas so that everyone is able to receive this vaccine if they choose to receive it. And that's going to include, working with the community, working with community partners, working with churches, working with community groups, working with community organizations that are instrumental in the African American community to make sure there is an equitable rollout of this vaccine.
And if I could just jump in here with equitable rollout, again, your health department needs to identify, because the data is there, identify the hardest hit communities and make sure that vaccine sites are being set up there. Now, the vaccine site is no good if people aren't coming to get the vaccine. So we have to address this. We have to address the two heads of this. We have to address the access to the vaccine, and we have to address the willingness of people to come get the vaccine. And those are two huge goals that we have to meet.
All right. Well, that is Dr. Elena McDonald, Dr. Delana Wardlaw. They are both board-certified physicians. Dr. Wardlaw, where can people find the two of you?
You can find us at Twin Sister Docs on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right. I want to thank you both for joining us this morning on WURD.
Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you, Solomon.
All right. All right. You too. So we got a couple minutes. We can take a couple of calls. 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number that you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. Let us know where you are on these various things we are talking about on this morning show. Let's go to Valerie on line 1. Good morning.
Good morning, Solomon. How are you? Just 1 second while I turn my radio down.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I'm here.
I hear you. Go ahead.
Solomon.
Yes.
I was on your show, I guess a couple weeks ago, and I told you about my husband. He's 80 years old, and he made this thing in his mind, and I went and put it on the T-shirts for Trump. And I took a day off, and I delivered the T-shirt to you at you weren't there physically. A beautiful young black lady was at the desk on the 3rd floor. And I was just so excited. And I'm wondering, did you receive your T-shirt?
No.
Oh, it's at the station in a
Okay.
bag.
I'll make sure that I get it.
Huh?
I said I will make sure that I get it.
Please do.
All right. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. And just to break the monotony of all this that we're going through, people need to just stop for a minute and pray and thank God for another day, because as long as you live, it's going to be trials and tribulations. But if you can wake up and see the sun and say, thank you, Jesus, for another day. You know, and Solomon, mostly everything you say is correct, and you're a young man. So you keep on doing what you're doing, because you got the Spirit of the Lord to speak to your people.
All right. Thank you, Valerie. We appreciate your call this morning on WURD. We're going to go to break on the other side. We're going to talk with sports writer Chris Murray about the Eagles making the decision to fire Doug Peterson and where we go from here. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
This Martin Luther King Jr. vignette is brought to you by Pico, Keystone Plus, Premium Nutrition Meals, and JD's Auto Body and Painting. The immortal words of Dr. King.
I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million Negroes of the United States are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice. I accept this award on behalf of a civil rights movement which is moving with determination. I'm mindful that only yesterday in Birmingham, Alabama, our children crying out for brotherhood were answered with fire hoses, snarling dogs, and even death. I am mindful that only yesterday in Philadelphia, Mississippi, young people seeking to secure the right to vote were brutalized and murdered. I am mindful that debilitating and grinding poverty afflicts my people and chains them to the lowest rung of the economic ladder. Therefore, I must ask why this prize is awarded to a movement which is beleaguered and committed to unrelenting struggle, to a movement which has not yet won the very peace and brotherhood which is the essence of the Nobel Prize.
This Martin Luther King Jr. vignette was brought to you by Pico, powering communities, Keystone Plus, Premium Nutrition Meals, and JD's Auto Body and Painting for all your auto body and detailing needs.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
Undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
lifting every voice
till earth and heaven ring.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media. Backed by popular demand.
It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM
and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM. And Jeff Lurie started something when he fired Doug Peterson yesterday. And here to talk about it is Chris Murray. He hosts the Murray Report on WURD. He's a veteran sports journalist who's covered the Eagles for many years. Doug Peterson fired. Chris, your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are like this. And all the reports I've read, all the people you talk to, it comes down to the fact that Doug Peterson and Jeffrey Lurie, I guess, had two different, versions of what they wanted to have. Jeffrey Lurie, if you listen to his press conference, says that the team has to do kind of a long-term rebuild. And basically, Peterson really wasn't with that. But in Peterson's case, he wanted more control of his assistants. I mean, everybody has said that Peterson was a bit upset when basically the personnel decisions and the coaching decisions of who he would have on his staff, was imposed upon him by the front office. Whenever you have a situation where the front office and the coaching staff are not on the same page, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
You're asking for a very dysfunctional situation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Carson Wentz, as a quarterback, his skills have regressed. He is not the same guy he was in, say, 2017 prior to his injury. Yeah. And then some of the personnel decisions made by General Manager Howie Roseman really have my head scratching because in the last 2 years they had a chance to select two wide receivers who would have really helped this offense. And he didn't do it, and he brought in a bunch of, I would say average Joes at this point. Maybe they'll develop later on, but, the personnel situation wasn't right. And this situation also brings to light, I'm wondering if Peterson was happy with the selection of Jalen Hurts in the second round of the draft last year, when the team really needed a linebacker, the team needed also some more offensive linemen and some other spots. And if they were committed, because remember, Carson Wentz signed this big contract. So if they're committed to Wentz, then why draft a quarterback? I didn't understand that, and I don't think deep down inside, if you want to explain the meltdown that happened against the Washington the last week of the season, that kind of told me that Peterson wasn't necessarily interested in trying to develop Jalen Hurts. If you're going to go, if that's the direction they were going to take.
Yeah, it was weird, man. The whole year was just very, very crazy. I saw, in the first game they get up 17-0 on Washington, and then they just implode. And things went downhill from there. And for me, it was about coaching, but it was also about the selections that they made in the draft. Like, to your point, they could have had DK Metcalf. They picked somebody else. They could have had Justin Jefferson. They picked Jalen Reagor. I didn't even know who Jalen Reagor was, and I'm a big fan. I follow the team very closely, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? And it turned out that at this point it looks like the wrong pick. And so I think you're right that the front office and them picking these players who can't play at the level that they should be able to, they have to be accountable too, because Doug Peterson can only work with what you give him.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's on Howie Roseman. I mean, when they won in 2017, I mean, they caught lightning in a bottle. They got the right guys. They got Alshon Jeffrey. They got all the right guys. But those guys are getting old. The last couple of years, how many games has Deshaun Jackson played? Maybe two in the last couple, 2 or 3. And they're getting older at that position. Now, in Lurie's defense, they are getting old at those positions. But when you have a general manager that whiffed on 2 obvious, candidates for your offense, you're talking about wanting to get young. It's a difficult situation. Right. And they fired Chip Kelly. When they fired Chip Kelly, one of the things that they said was, well, he didn't have emotional intelligence or emotional intelligence. Well, I'm wondering about the emotional intelligence of Howie Roseman, or of a front office not being in tune with the guys who actually coach the talent on the field. And I think that the guys who coach the talent on the field are a lot better than someone in the front office. I'm trying to figure out I don't know where Howie Roseman can play if he ever played a down of football. Okay, so you have to question those things. And the thing is, I'm always erring on the side of the guys who are on the field, who know the talent, who know the games, more so than somebody who came up in front office circles. I mean, it's almost like in the military, I think soldiers responded to an officer who served time as an enlisted man as opposed to a guy coming out of the academy and through ROTC. So from that standpoint, there's a disconnect. And this disconnect has created the situation, for 11-1. And from that standpoint, that's where, and the thing is, Peterson's going to land a job. Peterson will get a job, but probably with the Jets, so there are like 6 openings, and he has the pedigree of being a Super Bowl winning coach. Meanwhile, the Eagles, the Eagles have said, Jeffrey Lurie said during his press conference yesterday, they're going to be looking around for a coach. Someone asked him, will he consider minority candidates like Eric Bieniemy, who's the offensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs? Another guy I think they ought to consider is Byron Leftwich, who's down in Tampa Bay coaching Tom Brady. So,
but you know what? When you talk about the minority candidates, I feel bad for Deuce Staley. I feel like Deuce needs to go. Like Deuce needs to go somewhere where he's actually going to have an opportunity, because he's obviously not going to get it here. They made him they gave him some made up title like assistant head coach or some mess, but then they put somebody else in charge of the running game when he's a former running back. He needs to go. If I'm Deuce, I'm trying to get out of here, because it's obvious that he's never going to get an opportunity here. What I want to ask you, though, is, okay, so you fired the coach. So where do you go when you're looking at the future of the team? Like, what do you do?
Well, I would say that I would look at a guy like Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I would look at him because he's developed Patrick Mahomes, and he's developed Patrick Mahomes into one of the best, not one of the best. I would say he's the best quarterback in the league. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is good and all that. I'll give him credit, but get the best guy out there. And if they're dedicated to getting the best guy out there, Eric Bieniemy is the best guy out there, because his offenses have lit up the league for the last couple of years, and he too has the pedigree of being a Super Bowl champion. Plus, he's a disciple of Andy Reid, and Lurie really liked Andy Reid and Doug Peterson when they were here. So I think he needs to have, and they need to make a decision on what they're going to do with Carson Wentz. Yeah. I think that Peterson's firing leads me to suggest that they're going to bring Wentz back, and they're hoping that somehow the next coach is going to infuse something into Wentz that'll make him the quarterback that he was, say, in 2017 before he got the injury. But the thing is, though, I'm wondering if Wentz is already, damaged goods behind that. I wonder where he is psychologically, because he certainly couldn't handle the fact that they brought Jalen Hurts in there, and the fact that I think he's been pressing ever since Nick Foles won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but in his defense, he really needed guys around him, and they needed a game plan. Like for some reason, Doug Peterson didn't like running the ball, and I think that a guy like Miles Sanders was doing a good job when he got a chance to run the ball.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of blame to kind of go around. I'm not saying that Doug was totally innocent or that, Howie Roseman was totally guilty, but I think that, that someone, the number one theme, whenever you read about this, you probably read about this in my piece in the Sun at some point this week, is the fact that, there were too many chefs. There were too many people in the kitchen. They needed one voice. They needed one voice in there. But I also think that Peterson, hey, run the football. Utilize all the weapons that you have there. But when you have a front office and a coaching staff, and then there were reports that some of the guys that Peterson on the coaching staff didn't hire, basically had issues with Peterson. So it's a hot mess down there, and they down at NovaCare, and they got to fix it at some point. And whether or not they do, plus the fact there were people within the organization who said that Carson wasn't listening to the coaches. I mean,
Right.
that whole situation was just, and it's hard to blame any one person, but I think Lurie, and Roseman have to get a hold of the situation where you talk about emotional intelligence, you gotta basically listen to your coaches too. It's not about you can say all these guys. I mean, you saw in Washington where ownership tried to impose a quarterback on the coaching staff. Those situations rarely work.
Right.
And if it's not working, then there's something wrong with the whole thing. So everybody, whoever they hire, they're going to have to make sure they're on the same page.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
hopefully they'll consider there are qualified black coaching candidates out there. They just got to look for it.
But Eric Bieniemy leading the pack. And that, of course, is Chris Murray. He hosts the Murray Report on WURD. He's a veteran sports journalist who's covered the Eagles for many years. He also writes for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun. He joined us to talk about Doug Peterson getting fired as head coach of the Eagles. We'll see what happens from here. Chris, as always, brother, thank you so much. What time does your show come on this week?
Comes on Saturdays from 11 to 1 p.m.
All right. Make sure you check out Chris Murray this Saturday right here on WURD. Thank you, brother. We're going to take some calls. 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. Let us know where you are on these various things we are talking about on this morning show. 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD. Just a number of things going on. The Democrats preparing to once again impeach President Donald Trump, and we will see what happens with that. They have asked Mike Pence through a resolution to invoke the 25th Amendment, which would mean that the vice president and the cabinet, the majority of the cabinet, would come together to vote to say that the president is unfit for office right now, and then the vice president would take over. That's not going to happen. And so what happens now is that they move toward impeachment. Impeachment, remember, there's several steps in a process. Impeachment just means that the House votes to charge the president with high crimes and misdemeanors, right? In this case, inciting an insurrection, prompting people to attack Congress. Like if nothing else is a high crime and misdemeanor, that is. And so that is step one, drawing up the articles of impeachment. Then the House votes to impeach. right? Once the House votes to impeach, to charge the president with these high crimes and misdemeanors, that is an impeachment. But removing him from office is a whole other story. That has to go to the Senate, and the Senate has to vote by a 2/3 majority after a trial to convict the president of the high crimes and misdemeanors and remove him from office. And then in terms of, you know, taking away his pension and his Secret Service protection and all of this stuff, that is a separate vote that takes place after the conviction, right? And so you need 51 senators after 2/3 vote to convict him. Then you need 51 senators to then vote to say, we're now going to take away all your benefits. So it's a lot to get to the point where all of his stuff is going to be taken away. That doesn't happen just because the House votes to impeach. All right. So that's my understanding of it. I've been reading up on it, trying to get an understanding so that I could give that understanding to you. I want to hear from you. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. And so the impeachment, of course, story number one. Story number two, Philadelphia police detective still under investigation for attending that rally that turned into a riot. Her name is Detective Jennifer Gugger. She is 51 years old, and her job is to check out other people's social media. Well, the reason they caught her is because she was on social media bragging about being there. The question is, did she engage in the riot, the illegal activity where people broke into the Capitol and 5 people died as a result? And I don't ever want us to forget that. I don't ever want us to gloss over that. No, 5 people are dead because of what President Donald Trump did. This is not including a police officer. The people killed the police officer. What happens when black people kill police officers, right? So whatever happens when black people kill police officers, I need the same thing to happen to these people. Real rap. Like, if don't run around telling me we're a country of laws and the law only applies to me, but it don't apply to you. Don't even come to me with that. If it does not apply equally to everybody else, then don't tell me we're a country of laws, because we're not. We're a country of racism if it only applies to black people and not everybody else. Story number 3, federal authorities warning state and local law enforcement about threats of possible violence by right-wing extremists at a series of protests planned for later this month in Washington and other state capitals. That's according to FBI documents. And so I want to hear from you. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. Mike from North Philly is on line 1. Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning, Solomon. How you doing today, good brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing okay. 3 really quick things. First, yesterday I come up to work, right? Mm-hmm. And the first contractor that pulls up has a red Make America Great Again hat in his window. I got an instant attitude, because after all the things that have happened, you mean to tell me they still doing that? You know, there's always these guys out here, they like 5'3" with a size 13 shoe, and they're like a really badass or whatever. You know, it's crazy. And the second thing is, you know, this insurrection thing. Shouldn't the military put down an insurrection?
Yes, absolutely.
They did it with 9/11, right? The difference is we have domestic terrorism here, right?
Yep.
And the military should be used. They know all these things, and I hope they take it serious this time and get the proper, you know, agencies in place. But like you said earlier, the problem that we're having is that, you know, law enforcement has been infiltrated by white supremacists.
Yeah.
FBI said that years ago, right?
2006.
Yes, and we found out so is Congress, so is the Senate, so is everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing, you know, here's the thing with, you know, John sat back, no neck and nothing. You know, if he's so cynical, sitting up there smiling, right? Like, is there nothing that his officer can do that he will condemn them for? It's like I want to run up to him and scream, "Sir, do you have no decency?"
How about that?
Whatever they do, it's okay with him. You know, he's so cynical. I'll be glad when he's gone, because he's indicative of the problem in Philadelphia. And in closing, Solomon, when the revolution starts, I'm going to come down to the station. I'm going to drop off 2 muskets, one for you and Kawesa. And we're going to get this. That's the thing about call, Solomon.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate your call this morning on WURD. Scott from West Philly is online, too. Go ahead, Scott.
Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning.
Like when we spoke last week, I was saying once they start investigating, we're going to see there's a lot more law enforcement officers in there.
Yeah.
Because with the QAnon thing, they say where one of us go, all of us is in there. So they've already infiltrated all of that. You know, and for everybody with these red hats, now we know that MAGA don't stand for Make America Great Again. It means Make America Go Away. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your call this morning on WURD, and we are going to go to break. On the other side, we're going to talk with Congressman Brendan Boyle about what is going on in the House of Representatives, what is going to be next, and what is the plan to deal with what we are experiencing in the United States. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Thinking about retirement? Make sure a My Social Security account is a part of your plan. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can find out if you're eligible to receive benefits, compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates, view spousal benefit estimates, and more. Plan for your future. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio. Messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese. Exclusive articles and multimedia content and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by CVS. Looking at the Schuylkill Expressway westbound University through 30th, jammed up through that work zone eastbound side. Heavy South Street through University, westbound by jams up. Generally 95 right out through the Schuylkill Expressway now. Southbound 95, Cotman through Bridge, jam there. Again, Betsy Ross through Girard, heavy northbound side. That is looking pretty good in Worcester Township, Skippack Pike at Buster Road, an accident scene. 55 northbound Deptford into 42. That is a heavy ride there. It pays to fill your prescriptions at CVS. In fact, you could earn up to $50 in extra bucks each year for just filling out prescriptions. That's healthier made easy. Visit CVS today. Terms and conditions apply. Not available in all states. See CVS.com/RX rewards or pharmacy for details. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Skies are clear and it is cold this morning. Temperatures in the 20s and 30s will gradually warm to right around 40 degrees at lunchtime, and with bright sunshine all day long, 44 degrees this afternoon. Clear and cold tonight, 28 the low Wednesday morning. Another nice day tomorrow, partly to mostly sunny skies up to 46, and even a bit milder on Thursday with sunshine and a few clouds, a high of 50 degrees. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones.
Good morning.
Right now on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. Joining us now, Congressman Brendan Boyle. He represents the 2nd District in Pennsylvania, and he joins us to talk about the Capitol attack and next steps as President Donald Trump's term comes to an end. Congressman Boyle, welcome to the show.
All right, great to be with you.
Yep. So Were you there last week when the attack happened at the Capitol?
Yeah, I was actually finishing up my speech to defend Pennsylvania's electoral vote, since we were one of the 6 states that Trump-loving Republicans had announced they were going to object to. And the 6 states, actually all the 50 states, were going to be taken in alphabetical order. So by the time we spoke, it wasn't going to be until night. So I was just in my office, which is in the Longworth House office building, right across the street there from the Capitol, and it was just one of those most historic days in American history, and certainly the history of that building. As I'm sitting there working on my speech about the importance of saving democracy from anarchy, and then right outside my window, I can see and hear the rioters and tear gas smoke and hear flash bombs going off about one every 3 to 5 seconds. The contrast is something.
Yeah. And so, this happens, and it's an attack on democracy, set to try to overturn the will of the American people. And so this thing happens, and now we've had kind of a week to settle back and figure out what we're going to do about it. And so yesterday, the articles of impeachment, the resolution to do impeachment was passed on the House floor. So now what?
Well, so tonight, actually, we'll vote on one provision that is just prior to impeachment, and that is a resolution calling on Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment, to convene the cabinet and get a majority vote from those cabinet officials. That would be certainly the quickest way to end Donald Trump's presidency, to get him out of there, make sure he doesn't do any further damage. Assuming that Vice President Pence isn't willing to go along with that, then tomorrow we will vote on the one article of impeachment, which is incitement of insurrection. I am a co-sponsor of the resolution, and I think that it is entirely justified. It's remarkable that we have to do this when he only has a little over a week left in his presidency. And I know some people have said, well, what's the point? There's only a week left. But the reality is a president of the United States can do an incredible amount of damage in literally just a minute. He could now, while we're on the phone, launch nuclear war, and there's nothing we could do to stop him. So we have to do everything that we can to end this nightmare now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's been a lot of talk about him losing his benefits as a result of being impeached. And of course, impeachment is and removal is a multi-step process. That is a process that would go beyond just the House impeaching him in order to remove all of his benefits. Is that right?
Well, so let me just say, because I know that one of my colleagues is working on that as far as removal of benefits, and it's certainly something that I would be interested in taking a look at. But I have to say, right now, it's not one of my top concerns. My top concern right now is removing him from office, number one. Number two, once we get him out of office, whether it's in the next couple days or 12 noon, January 20th, I want to make sure that he is the target of a criminal investigation for these actions. I believe there is already enough evidence publicly known. Forget, taking a look at the phone records, which I think we need to do, see any connection between the White House and the organizers of this and the people who stormed the Capitol. Before we even get into all of those things that have yet to be uncovered, just based on what is publicly known and what we saw with our own eyes and ears on television, or that I saw with my own eyes and ears in person, I believe this president has committed the crime of seditious conspiracy, which is punishable to up to 20 years in prison. I want to see, as a post-president, Donald Trump investigated, and I believe, based on the evidence, charged, arrested, and put on trial for these federal crimes that were committed. That, to me, is what should take precedent immediately once he leaves office.
Yeah, and I happen to agree with you on that because I think there is ample evidence of a crime. But given that, of several crimes, in fact, but given that we are now experiencing a time when people have stormed the Capitol of the United States and are now talking about storming state capitals around the country, now that people have been emboldened to do that, how do we address that as a country, and what lessons do we take from what happened last week in order to address this now?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, and I'll tell you, Solomon, a few of my colleagues have already been texting and just when we were in person just talking about this. We as members of Congress thought we were better protected and the building was better protected than, as it turned out. I mean, a lot of this looked like it was theater, and that was exposed last Wednesday. I can't believe how quickly the building fell. Now, it's pretty obvious that the folks who made the decision before the event not to ask for help, even though we were being told the decision had been made to bring in the National Guard, by the way. So understand that we as members of Congress and our leadership were lied to. We were being told that, oh, don't worry, there's going to be plenty of help. We've asked to bring in the National Guard. It turns out, actually, the House and Senate Sergeant of Arms, both of them, did the exact opposite and rejected that. So that was part of what was going on Wednesday. But moving forward, and look, I believe in keeping the Capitol grounds as open as possible right now, or up until this event happened. It was an open grounds. You could walk right up, get pretty close to the Capitol building. I think in light of this, in light of the fact now, if you're ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Russia, et cetera, you've seen just how the playbook has been written, right? You've seen what to do. In light of that, I think, unfortunately, the security concerns have to win out, and we have to beef up security considerably. And by the way, last point I'll make on this, I have to say I think it's a lot easier to do that in Washington, D.C. than the 50 state capitals. Back where I used to serve in Harrisburg, if a crowd, even a fraction of this size, did the same thing in Harrisburg, they pretty quickly, I think, be able to take over.
And so, I just wonder if the states are prepared for this. And then, given that there are now 2 Capitol Police officers under investigation, another law enforcement person, perhaps somebody from the National Guard, under arrest, given that we've seen some level of cooperation from people in our law enforcement agencies with what happened last week, what do we do? Like, how do we purge that? How do we know who these people are going forward?
You can't. The frustrating thing is 2 things are true at the same time. The first is the vast majority of Capitol Police fought valiantly. Obviously, we know one lost his life in that fight. Another died by suicide. That officer happened to have been heavily involved in the events of Wednesday. And when I say heavily involved, I mean fighting to repel these domestic terrorists. There are a lot of other police officers who are not only physically wounded, but are mentally and emotionally exhausted, suffering from PTSD. And that is the vast majority. And yet at the same time, there is no question there were also individual Capitol Police officers who were sympathetic and were helping those domestic terrorists. One piece of evidence, besides some of the videos that we've seen and other reports, Jim Clyburn is the House Majority Whip, happens to be the most senior African-American member of Congress, is a very good friend of mine, civil rights hero, best friend of John Lewis going back to when they were in the movement together in the early 60s. He has an office on the 3rd floor that I've been to. It is very hard to get to. You have to take a certain elevator. It's easy to get lost. They were able to get, and it's not marked, by the way, also. They were able to get into his office and take his tablet. Now, I have a hard time believing that some of the nutty-looking people in that crowd just happened to stumble upon that office.
Right.
Either prior preparation or someone on the inside directing them or helping them to that. So that's the sad reality. You can't paint with one brush. I mean, the vast majority of officers fought and are suffering right now, and I'm worried about them. And yet then there were also traitors within their midst that turned their back on those other officers and on us and on the country.
We're talking with Congressman Brendan Boyle about what happened last week and then what's getting ready to happen and how we prepare for that as a country. Has there been any talk of sending some federal resources to help in these states?
Well, probably the best resources available for each of the 50 states would be the National Guard, which is under the direction of each of the 50 state governors. So, I mean, for me, if I were asked by our governor or any state governor, I would say activating the National Guard now, putting them in a position of protection around the state capitol building and any other important buildings. I think where there might be political activity or legislative activity going on, I think that's just a sensible precaution.
And so in terms of dealing with the president, so charging him at this point would be up to, I guess, the incoming Justice Department after he is gone from office. Has there been any talk around that? We know that Merrick Garland has been nominated as Attorney General. Has there been any talk about what this Justice Department will do in terms of charging the president with these federal crimes?
So I'm actually working on this right now, and I was on a caucus call yesterday afternoon with the House Democratic leadership, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Hoyer, Whip Clyburn, and over 200 of my Democratic colleagues. That's where I told them exactly what I told you, that I think one of the most important things, in fact, the most important thing after our impeachment vote will be doing everything we can to ensure Donald Trump is investigated and, I believe, based on the evidence already available, brought to justice. And that means arrested and put on criminal trial for this. So I'm working on a resolution, which I'll be introducing very soon, perhaps today, that calls for exactly that the sense of the House resolution, it calls for exactly what I just talked about. And as we're looking into the process, there are a couple different ways that you could go. Right now, there is the U.S. Attorney in D.C. who is apparently already investigating the event last week. An incoming president could also appoint a special counsel, or a new Attorney General could appoint a special counsel. So that's a different way that could go. I think either one of those would be fine. I just want to make sure it happens.
Yeah. That is Congressman Brendan Boyle. He represents Pennsylvania's 2nd Congressional District. My last question to you is, what should we expect to see from the House today?
Well, it'll probably be this evening, but there will be the vote on urging Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment. That would be the quickest and the cleanest way to get Trump out of there. That vote will happen, as I said, this evening. We'll look around 6:30, 7:30 for that to happen. And then tomorrow we will have the impeachment vote, which would be historic. I believe the votes are there. I think we'll have some Republicans join us as well. And so we will have assuming Mike Pence doesn't invoke the 25th Amendment, between now and tomorrow, we will have the bipartisan impeachment of Donald Trump.
All right. Congressman Brendan Boyle from Pennsylvania's 2nd Congressional District, thank you so much for joining us this morning on WURD.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. All right. So we're going to go to break. And on the other side, we are going to talk to you, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Happy New Year, Philly. It's Sincerely Sarita. The 2020 pandemic blew the roof off of life as we know it and forced us to make radical decisions once thought impossible. Many parents and grandparents turned to the option of a public cyber education. In thousands of instances, they sought assistance from the one true pioneer and industry leader in public cyber education, Commonwealth Charter Academy. Visit ccaeducate.me and exercise your right to choose a safe, hassle-free, student-focused learning environment your kids deserve. CCA delivers elite online instruction streamed directly to the safety and comfort of your living room. They provide a laptop and headset along with internet connectivity that includes financial assistance, all at no cost to families. CCA has been the gold standard in school choice for nearly 20 years. Visit ccaeducate.me and ring in 2021 with a 5-star learning experience. Again, that's ccaeducate.me.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
You're waking up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones.
Good morning.
Right now on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM
and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD, and we are, of course, taking your calls at 215-634-8065. Let's jump right in. Maurice from Southwest is on line 3. Go ahead, Maurice.
How you doing, Solomon?
I'm good. How are you?
Let me tell you something. I'm looking at this thing totally different. I'm looking at Donald Trump has stole our thunder. We done had one of the greatest victories ever.
Yeah,
by getting the House and the Senate and getting Donald Trump out. And he's still in our mouth. He's in the news. And we come to find out he has his own personal army. We should be watching Stacey Abrams and the 2 senators on TV every night talking about our great victory and the great things we're going to try to get out of Joe Biden. Instead, every night, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. They even made up a word. I mean, it is a word, but we never used it before. What's the word they call them rioters instead of mobsters and white mob? What's the name they call them? Interventionists?
Insurrectionists.
Yeah,
insurrectionists.
Come on. Now, you know if it was Black Lives Matter, they would not be called that. You know, they're just like when Katrina happened, George Bush was calling black people that lived there all their life refugees. They always come up and make up a word for these people, so it doesn't sound as bad as it is.
Insurrectionist is not a compliment, Maurice.
I understand that, but we wouldn't call them that. I'm just saying they always got a language that they use, but when it comes to us, they find the lowest and the dirtiest word, like rabid dogs and stuff like that. That's what they call us. They don't try to find the correct word, what we are. They just find the lowest denominator. And I hear a lot of people calling, sound like they scared to death, like these white folks is coming to their neighborhood. Come on, these are fools that were prompted to do this. They ain't no, but they always been this way. So I just want people to say, hey, we hold the cards right now. Let's act like we got a victory instead of acting scared. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, I don't think being prepared is acting scared. I think being prepared is being smart. But, you know, I think also that you don't know what's going to happen. And so you just need to be prepared for, you know, whatever contingency plans you need to have in place. That's what I think. So I hear you, man, but I want to thank you for your call, and I understand your point. Let's go to Sarah from North Philly on line 4. Go ahead, Sarah.
Good morning, Dean Solomon, Queen Clarissa.
Good morning.
Instead of asking for money, fame, and power, but ask for wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, God led his people that he gave them more than, you know, gave them double for his trouble. And then he gave them more than they can even imagine or even ask for because of that. It must be a renewing of the mind. We must stop thinking of ourselves of anything less. We are partakers of the divine nature, which makes us kings and queens. It is in our genes, not yet some master. We need to remodel that image to our children so they don't act like planet apes and thugs or misfits that took place in the White House. Solomon, I call it like I see it, and give honor where it's due. You are a king and a queen, not because you want to be blessed, but because you are blessed, fearfully and wonderfully made by God. That's not meant that you have to do everything, because teamwork makes the dream work. You are the king of your castle, and Clarissa, you are the queen in your castle. Thank you for taking my call, Solomon.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate that, as always, and thank you for that encouragement. Let's go to Dwayne from Southwest on line 1. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yes, I go along with what Marie was saying. I think we spend too much time worrying about Trump. I mean, we should be worrying about what black people are doing. We killing each other left and right. It's already up 26 shootings already this year. And I think we spend too much time worrying about what they're doing. Because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. And then while we worrying about other folks, I mean, our people, these young kids are dying out the street. Yeah, we got to do something. We got to do something about that. I think we got enough problems on our own stuff, you know, to still worrying about what they are doing.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
Where do you live, Dwayne?
Oh, Southwest.
I'm not talking about your address. I'm just saying what city do you live in?
Oh, Philadelphia.
And what state is that in?
Pennsylvania.
And what country is that in?
Oh, of course I know it. I know what country.
All right,
it is.
so I'm just asking you. So
Yeah.
like, you know, and we could be hyper local and we could even be hypercritical. And by the way, we'll be doing our Man Up PHL mentoring session tonight. The organization that we put together to deal with gun violence by mentoring young men and showing them a different way. Tonight we'll be talking about actually job readiness, how you get and keep a job. You'd be surprised. A lot of brothers, I want a job, they have no idea, A, how to get a job, and B, how to keep a job. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight, of course, in the context of what is going on around us. We can't ignore that. So that is going to be tonight at 6 on Man Up PHL on our Facebook page, our live mentoring session to deal with that very issue that you talk about. But I think you're right that we absolutely have to worry about what's going on in our community, and that's what we do through Man Up PHL. But I think we also have to worry about what's going on in this country where we live. And so if I live in, you know, East Mount Airy, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, in the United States, then guess what? You know, this is my country too. So I need to be, you know, really thinking about all of that. That's my only point.
All right.
All right, Dwayne, I want to thank you for your call this morning on WURD. Let's go to Anthony from Delaware on line 2. Go ahead, Anthony.
Good morning, Solomon. I think it's really to be a Republican political leader these days is really dangerous. I think this is the end result of all that gerrymandering that they called themselves doing to give themselves advantages in the House and the Senate. And they say when you gerrymander, you pick your voters, and the voters don't pick you. So I think these voters are very angry at those politicians. And I don't think those politicians would even be there if it wasn't for gerrymandering. So I think that the gerrymandering that they've done has really kind of backfired on them, and they're really scared of their own voters. So have a good day.
That's an interesting point. I want to thank you for your call this morning on WURD. Let's go to Lamar from Camden on line 3. Go ahead, Lamar.
Good morning, Solomon. Your callers have very good ideas, and that just shows how deep and rotted our country is. But I'm going to say this. I think that you've made a point, you said earlier, that we cannot let John McNesby get off with what he said. And I think that he's not in my town because I'm from Jersey. But I think that we need to have a reckoning on all those union individuals who supported Trump and has said nothing about an officer being killed. I think that we need to really start there. It seems as though every time we in the black community do something wrong, we got to have our officials come out and do a press conference to disavow vandalism. I don't hear nobody requiring John McNesby to come out and disavow what possibly could be law enforcement officers involved in sedition. I think that we should not let him slide. I think that, that the powers that be should also make a decision that the next police contract says if you have him as your president, we cannot deal. We cannot deal with you as long as you have that individual in there, or anybody who feels as though that they need to promote sedition. And again, they love this flag so much, but yet they continue to do what they do. And secondly, I always say, Solomon, that we in our black community have our own issues to deal with, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yes.
But we don't need to be playing the victim game every time someone calls up and say that is a false equivalence of, violence that's going on, because I'm sure if you go out in West Virginia, there's some violence going on amongst those folks as well. So.
Yep. I agree, and I want to thank you so much for your call this morning on WURD Radio. Let's go to Shaheem from New Jersey on line 4. Go ahead, Shaheem.
How you doing, man? Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just want to talk about the so-called insurrection, and I just had popcorn ready, and I'm like, yo, where's this going? I'm like, when is the heads going to start getting bashed? But I don't want anyone to get it confused. They're going to do nothing to these people. If you remember, they murdered hundreds of thousands of people during the Civil War, and they forgave all that. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to do, you know what I'm saying? Because this is them attacking them. And what was so surprising, the Republicans said, oh, my God, these fools will even get us. We don't know what we unleashed. This is what you got here. But they're going to crack down on a couple, but 90% of them, the ones even at the top, Robert Lee and the rest of them, they're going to be forgiven. Hey, look, boys will be boys. These things happen. This is because it's us against us, and this house will not destroy itself from within. They're not going to let that happen. But if we or another class of people try to do something like that, that's when all heck will break loose. But as far as them doing it to them, there's not too much. They do a little something for the optics. But it's Civil War. They killed hundreds of thousands of each other. You know what I'm saying? They're like, all right, after the war, hey, we forgive all that. Let's keep it moving. And that's what's going to happen here. You know what I'm saying? So somebody will be made to pay, scapegoat. But the majority of these people, especially the ones that you're talking about, the ones that are in high positions, they will be forgiven. They will be forgiven and possibly reelected. I want to appreciate you for letting me talk, and I'll listen to the rest. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much for your call this morning on WURD Radio. If you want to get in, you can certainly give us a call at 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. Let's see what folks are saying this morning on Facebook. Of course, we are commenting at 4WURD. That's FORWURD, FORWURD. That's where you can comment on Facebook and let us know where you are on this morning's show. Kawesa, what are they saying this morning on Facebook?
So a couple comments that we do have. Ed Minner is saying, need to get the vaccine out and demand accountability for the delays. Only 1 in 3 of vaccine stocks are in people's arms in Pennsylvania. So that's one comment that we have here. Then Rebecca Truxon says, we need to pray and be thankful that we have the House and the Senate at this time, but it is a difficult time. And yeah, I definitely agree with you, Rebecca. I also, want to make sure that we're holding Democrats accountable too, because, they need to start making changes and doing the things that we as black folks need, because we're responsible for getting them in. Atia Hicks, good morning to you. Erica, good morning to you as well. Yonda Washington is agreeing with one of the callers that we had on as well. And then I'm trying to scroll over. Yonda Washington also says, I heard they've been shorting Philadelphia. I guess in regards to the vaccines, I haven't heard that, but I've heard that there's been a couple of shortages just kind of all around, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that. Lucy Luson is saying good morning to everyone, and she's also saying we all should be paying attention to what is going on in the world because it may affect us down the line. That's in response to what Maurice was saying. And then we also had a couple other folks, but I can't seem to scroll over here with my phone. So I'm going to say that those are our comments for right now.
All right. If you want to get in on the phone lines, you can certainly give us a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number that you can call to get in on the conversation. We are, of course, talking about a number of things, including the House moving to impeach the president, and a Philadelphia police detective under investigation for attending that rally and perhaps being involved in that riot. And, of course, we are also talking about story number 3, federal authorities warning state and local law enforcement about threats of possible violence by right-wing extremists at a series of protests at capitals across the country. I'm going to go back to the phone lines and talk to Samuel from West Philly on line 1.
Hey, good morning, Brother Solomon.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, I'm sitting here listening to you for a lot of time, and what I would like to say is that one thing we got to realize that what just happened last week was that these wasn't just people that walk around with beards and bald heads and tattoos. What I'm saying is that these are average people that we see every day, probably even living in our own neighborhood. So it's best for us to be prepared because you never know. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be the guy that you work with at work. So it's always best to be prepared and be prepared just in case something happens. So for people to call and say, oh, well, we got shootings going on in the city every day. Yeah, we understand that. But these are people that have in their mind that Trump is their God. So whatever Trump tells them to do, they want to do. So, I mean, it's best to be prepared. Be prepared because you never know what's going to happen. And that's all I have to say.
I agree, Samuel. I agree wholeheartedly, man. And I want to thank you so much for your call this morning on WURD. We are going to go to break. And on the other side, we're going to talk with Roxanne Jones. She wrote a piece this week for CNN about white privilege run amok. We're going to talk with Roxanne on the other side. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of eating the same thing day after day? Is ordering takeout starting to get a little old? If so, then give Premium Nutrition Meals a try. With Premium Nutrition Meals, you get to select new entrees each week from several different menus, all chef-crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered right to your door. Just go to PremiumNutritionMeals.com to order to earn rewards today. WURD listeners receive $10 off orders of 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWURD at checkout.
Listen to Laborers Live. We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
This is a continuation of the mistreatment of black women in the United States. When I think of Black Lives Matter, I'm not just thinking of police brutality. I'm thinking about a whole law enforcement system screaming for reform. You can't tell me he didn't know something, and even if he didn't, he should have.
And now, Roxanne Jones, live on Wake Up with Word.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD, and I want to welcome you back to Wake Up with Word. Joining us now is Roxanne Jones. Roxanne Jones, of course, is a CNN commentator. She is also the co-author of Say It Loud, an illustrated history of the black athlete, and CEO of the Push Marketing Group, a media strategy firm. Roxanne, good morning.
Good morning, Solomon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I'm exhausted from working a lot, but you know,
yeah,
I'm lucky to have a job. Some people don't, so I can't complain.
Exactly. So, you are lucky to have a job because right now Doug Peterson doesn't. I got to ask you about that. So he got fired, Roxanne. What do you think?
I think, you know, sometimes when you wake up, there's joy in the morning. So this is good. I mean, what else could they do? What else?
Yeah.
What else could they do? Because you run out of all the excuses. You blamed everybody on the field. You know, you blamed everything. But, yeah, this is good. He had to go. He had to go.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens from here.
Right. We'll see what happens from here. I mean, because there's a lot, right? There's a lot of change that you want to see. At least I think fans and probably players too want to see. So, but this is good. The head is gone. He's the only one, though. I haven't even seen the news.
He's the only one so far that they've talked about. I don't know if his whole staff is gone or what, but they need to be. And I was saying earlier, if I'm Deuce Staley, because Deuce Staley's been on the coaching staff, they haven't given him any kind of real promotions, I would be looking to go too.
Yeah, I would too. Why hang around and be disrespected?
Right.
See all these white people coming in.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right.
There comes a time. A time. So,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, this is good, but I agree with you. The whole staff needs to go.
Yeah.
If Lori is serious about winning, then that's what he needs to do. So
yeah, bring in a coach, let him pick his staff. And so I want to talk about your piece. You wrote about this is what it looks like when white privilege basically runs amok. About what happened last week at the Capitol. We all were watching that together. Roxanne, when you saw what happened, what did you think?
Well, you know, it was really a weird thing, Solomon, because I was already covering the Electoral College count, right? So just thinking about, and we had already planned at CNN how that might look, contingency plans, don't write anything until we really know. And so, you know, as I'm watching the whole thing, I thought I was shocked that people were even objecting, still trying to kick out votes, throw out votes. But, you know, when I saw that, you know, I have to be honest, Solomon, I wasn't really, I know everybody's like shock and awe, but I wasn't, because it felt so familiar, even though it was the Capitol. You know, I saw Philandro Castile die with his little daughter in the back seat. You know, I saw tanks turned on Black Lives Matter protesters. We've seen at least photos of the civil rights and heard stories from our family about how people were killed and maimed, attacked by dogs. And so, although I was surprised they got in, I guess. Yeah. But you know, it seemed to me less shock and more, this is what we've come to because we let this white supremacy and racism just get out of control, left unchecked. And so now these people who have already taken over state houses, now they're at the Capitol. I mean, I have to say that's really what I felt, and I was glad that, that some of the police anyway, protected the Congress, because of course I didn't want to see any massacres there, but I was not shocked, Solomon. I wasn't shocked. I was angry. I think angry would be more of a better description of how I felt. But I was angry about many things. The way the police allowed them in, the way that they ran through that White House like it was a fraternity party, like they had so much white privilege, that this was all a joke. Like, our laws are a joke. Nobody's going to kill us. We have the right to do this. Ran through the house that we built, Black hands built. And, so I think I was angry, but I was also thinking, this is America. This is what happens. Everything gets out of control. We don't take these people serious, all this hate, supremacy, we deny it. We're silent about it. And when I say we, I don't mean Black people. And so now these fools have stormed our Capitol. And we elected this president, and media amplified everything he said. We pretty much put their invitation, gave a big announcement. And so here they are. And look at how they get treated.
I think you're absolutely right. I do want to say this, because I think that the point that you made about media amplifying him has to be underlined, because what happened is that the liberal media, the left-wing media, that has an arrogance about it, that thinks everybody else is stupid. Everybody that doesn't agree with us is stupid, and so let's laugh at them. That was the attitude that they took toward Donald Trump, and in doing that, they amplified him. They helped him. Every time they put him on like he was a joke, ha ha, look at this fool, they were amplifying his message for free, giving him millions of dollars worth of campaign advertisement. I think that the left is as responsible for electing him and amplifying him as anybody else, Roxanne.
Oh, I do too, because I think, and I don't just think they were laughing like he's a clown, because I'm in it. I'm working. I wouldn't call CNN left, but I would just say that they are just normal media. Outside of Fox, there's the rest, and they either try to walk between. MSNBC is on the other side. Most of them do try to say they're in between, right? But either way, I would say liberal compared to Fox. Either way, it wasn't just laughing at Trump. I don't know, but I think it was normalizing, and it was a pretend. It was hypocrisy, because it was a pretend. Can you believe he just said this racist thing, knowing and putting that on television for millions and millions for the entire world, knowing good and well they had heard stuff like that in their own families, like that it was no big shock that this racist white man was now saying this stuff, and we have to tell the entire world because we're all so shocked we've never heard anything like this, whether it was sexist or racist or just idiotic and untrue. Because as you'll remember, as we were going up to the campaign with Trump, there were some very respectable newspapers and media organizations that said, we're not even going to call out his lies. Because it was so like, it's the office of the presidency, and we can't call a president a liar when he's lying. And most of the stuff he was lying about had to do with Black and brown people.
Roxanne,
immigrants being murderers.
Roxanne, I sat on a panel with some fairly prominent journalists. One of them is now a regular commentary on CNN, and we were talking about the campaign. And I remember this prominent journalist here in Philadelphia said, well, we cannot call him a liar. Rather than saying that, we should say he said without evidence. I turned around, looked at this white man like, you got to be out of your mind. And I said, on that panel, that no, we have to call a lie a lie. He's lying. What do you mean we shouldn't call it a lie when it's a lie, when it's clearly that? No, that's not journalism. That's not being objective. You're not objective anyway. So go ahead and just call it what it is. Like, if they helped him. They helped him and normalized it. And what I'm hoping is that in addition to whatever lessons we learn as a country, that there are some lessons that we learn in our profession as media about how to handle truth, man, and just tell it.
Well, I think that you need to keep saying that, and I keep saying it and writing about it. I'm working with NABJ. I'm still on the board because I don't see those lessons getting through. I see a lot of scapegoating, and because, you know, there's other obvious news, critical emergency news, breaking news that needs to be covered. But in order to do a self-reflection, and a lot of people are saying, we just didn't know how to cover this. And I'm pushing back on that because you don't walk into the newsroom or to your job and become a different person. So if you're amplifying and normalizing racism at work, you're doing that at home too. Like you know what a lie is before you walk into the doors of your job if you're a journalist. It remains the same inside. A lie is a lie. And so, yes, so I think for a lot of reasons, watching the siege and writing about it, because when I had to flip and then now it's like a 2-night marathon writing because everything's changing, you know, this is the first time I did not have pushback on calling things what they are, calling racist white supremacists, calling white people who commit violence against the state domestic terrorists, or who could, like, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Because
I can see it. I'm reading the piece. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, they let us say that?
Yes. And in one place, I think I might have had rioters, because, you know, you try not to use the same words over again.
Right.
And they said, you know, here's something you could say. You could, you know, how we go through edits. So they said, well, here you could say domestic terrorist. You could say, I said, well, you know what? Let me just put that back in there then.
How about that?
But it was good, but it's still, I was like, this is some nonsense, because up until today, I would have had to fight for those words.
Yeah.
You know,
and so one of the things you wrote about in your piece, Roxanne, was that you initially thought about, in watching these white people being let in, you know, I mean, you know, it's a shame because some of the Capitol Police, man, is fighting these people tooth and nail. But they were, you know, they were far outnumbered. Some of them were cooperating with them, and we'll find out, I'm sure, how many did. But you compared it to the what happened when Black Lives Matter came there and people were protesting around George Floyd. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, that was one of the first images I remembered, because it was just in June and it was right near the White House. And you know, explosives were thrown at them. They were on their knees. They were peacefully protesting George Floyd's murder. On their knees, some were laying on the ground. They had signs. It was a few hundred people in the park, Lafayette Park it's called. And that's when Trump used the military to clear the way with explosives, with tear gas, with guns, with riot gear, so he could walk to that church and hold the Bible upside down and take a photo. And so that is, you know, and when we saw that presence, we all saw that. We saw the military. And since we've seen photos of every time there was a Black Lives Matter protest, and on that day, there were thousands of military in full war gear on the steps of the Capitol, blocking it to make sure nobody got in. Nobody got anywhere near there. And so that, again, watching those images and thinking about the George Floyd protests and how we were met like we were enemies of the state, and the rhetoric from Trump, you know, calling us terrorists and even worse. And then the press conference that he had, I'm sure every Black person felt the same, talking about, we love you and you're special people, and just go home while these domestic terrorists are murdering people inside of the Capitol. Are you kidding me? So you know, so now I really have no patience for any conversation, at least in the circles that I'm in, that are trying to explain why Trump shouldn't be removed immediately from office.
Right.
You know, why, you know, U.S., because we talk about, you and I many times have talked about that FBI report that already warned that U.S. law enforcement was infiltrated by white supremacists. And now we see that. We see that from the Capitol, from the police officers and military members who are now under investigation for colluding with these white terrorists.
Yeah.
That's actually happening. And so, and I'm glad it's happening. And I've seen a couple of the black Congress people on television saying, you know, it's really, there had to be, you know, they can't really talk like they want to, but saying it's pretty suspicious that my office that was unmarked, that's down a maze, that nobody knows where it is, was targeted. And the office that I have with my name on it, bright and bold, and a big sign with a nameplate and everything, was untouched. So they are saying that what they saw under the siege was a direct and immediate targeting of specific people, and the black folks, of course, were on that list. And they said it seemed like it was an inside job. That's what they're saying, and we know it was. And so white supremacists infiltrating the military and law enforcement, we already knew that. But now, as in everything else that happens under this taint of racism, white folks and media and people in power act like you need a whole bunch of research and data to prove this stuff before they'll bring it to light and acknowledge it. We know we don't need that.
That's right.
If black folks are running Congress, do you think, like, it just wouldn't have happened? Because we've known. I said when I wrote the piece, you know, it really felt like we have felt. Many black people have felt like this country was on the brink of disaster for a long time. That could be civil war. It could be whatever it was, felt like something bad was going to come, because you cannot keep pushing people down violently, government-sanctioned murder after 401 years without some kind of repercussions, some awakening, something. It just can't, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's how I felt when I was watching that. And so I think now this is the point that we are in, and we have to see, you know, now more people, it's in our face. Like, how do we deal with this thing that we've let fester and grow and watered and nurtured or ignored? And I mean people who call themselves, you know, woke, liberal, whatever, who turned their heads, who moved to the suburbs far, far away and thought maybe they could ignore it, who, you know, thought they were okay because their kids were in a better school, or because when they get sick, they can go to a better hospital and they don't have to die like we are of COVID. I mean, all of that has gotten us to this point. It's the attitude, the embedded and encouraged and silent and sometimes very loud for us, white supremacy, that is ingrained in every level of our culture here. We have to now deal with this. We have to deal with it. And you can see how bad it is, because we can't even really trust. You think those Congress people are really trusting that all the police are going to be protecting them?
No, they're not. No, they're not. But now they know how we feel. We're gonna be praying, and we're gonna be moving, and we're gonna be working. We got to go though. That is Roxanne Jones. Roxanne Jones, of course, is a former VP at ESPN. She is a CNN opinion writer, Emmy-nominated producer, co-author of Say It Loud, an illustrated history of the black athlete, and CEO of the Push Marketing Group, a media strategy firm. Roxanne, thanks so much.
Thank you, Solomon. Have a good week. Be safe.
All right, you too. We got to go to break. Make sure you read Roxanne's latest on CNN. We will share the link on our Facebook feed. Dr. Nicole Tefera and Dr. Chandra Davis, they're both clinical psychologists. They're up next. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Morning, Mama. How you feeling?
Great, and I'm ready for you today.
I'm checking in on ya. Morning meditation?
Check.
Dressed and ready to work out?
Check.
Check your blood pressure yet?
And check.
Boom! Great job, Mom. And about those gold earrings?
No, ma'am.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Monitor your blood pressure daily and help each other stay motivated. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. And I want to welcome you back to Wake Up with WURD. Joining us now, Dr. Nicole Tefera, clinical psychologist who works primarily with children, adolescents, and their families in Chicago. And Dr. Chandra Davis, she is a clinical psychologist who works primarily in early childhood with families and children from birth to 5 years old. Good morning, doctors. How are you both?
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. So, Dr. Tefera, I will start with you because you both are in this piece in the New York Times about coronavirus and the trauma that it represents for young people. What are you hearing from your patients in Chicago, Dr. Tefera?
Yes, I'm thinking primarily about, or I'm hearing primarily about some of the challenges that families are facing in terms of trying to reorganize their schedules, navigate the virtual school setting and e-learning, children who are managing being within the household with people that they're necessarily not used to being cared for by, for example, extended family members or neighbors or what have you, are having to step in because there are, needs for family members to go out and work within the environment. And then finally, I think the biggest challenge is families are coping with grief and loss because their families are affected disproportionately so with the numbers of, as you see in the news, the number of family members affected with coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dr. Davis, how are kids dealing with this?
I think what we're seeing in our clinic here in Harlem is that it ranges. It really depends on how the caregiver is doing. I mean, particularly for early childhood, right? Little ones who are in preschool or in kindergarten are the population that I work with primarily. And so if the parent is feeling somewhat organized and able to cope with all of these additional stressors, then the children tend to do okay. But when parents are overwhelmed, which many parents are, and particularly due to, everything that Dr. Tefera just spoke about, as well as simple things like, which may not seem simple to others, but simple things like not having a good Wi-Fi connection or not having the actual computer hardware so that your child can participate in virtual learning. Of course, things like food insecurity, not having food to feed your family with if they're not going to school. These additional stressors on families, of course, make it so that the parent is having a difficult time coping, and so then their little ones are not coping well either, right? So they're not participating in the virtual learning. They're having more tantrums. We're seeing more sensory motor disorganization, which tends to be how little ones show when they're stressed out and overwhelmed, right? Problems with toileting, problems with feeding, those types of things are things that we're seeing a great increase.
So in terms of what's going on with the social unrest, because this is something that I've never seen. I'm uncomfortable seeing what's going on around us. Dr. Tefera, how do we talk to our children about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I first want to just name that it is important to recognize that if children do have access to social media, that they may be getting images or information through social media formats. So parents are needing to kind of check in with their children about that and monitor what they're being exposed to and provide a space for clarification. I also think that, limiting exposure to the news and social media, knowing when to step away, and then recognizing that children do listen and hear what you say in your household, even if you think they're not hearing it. So I do think most importantly, it's important to create spaces for discussion, creating spaces to be able to acknowledge and validate whatever feelings a child may have, and also really being able to emphasize safety during this time is very important as well.
Okay, so Dr. Davis, how do you go about teaching families how to talk to their children about, just some of the chaotic things that we're seeing, coronavirus, the political upheaval, some of the violence we've seen in the Capitol, the violence in our streets? How do you train family members to talk to kids about that?
The first thing that comes to mind is that one of our approaches is to remember that little ones are already listening to their family members talk about it, right? They're hearing their parents talk about it with other family members. And so, I try to shy away from this notion that we're going to teach something better or train something better, and really try to partner with the caregivers about how are you already talking about it in the family, and then what are ways that we can make that language a little bit more developmentally appropriate for the young ones that we work with, and highlighting with the caregiver what is it that they're most concerned about, and to be able to talk about that with their little one, to be able to say, Mama's sometimes scared too. I understand why it's scary to you as well. And maybe helping the caregiver think about what are the ways, if they have a sense of that already, that they are able to connect with others to feel a greater sense of safety, and then be able to share that with their little one. So I think that's how I tend to think a little bit more about it than thinking that there's one perfect way or there's a way that we can teach folks that's going to be the foolproof way that touches all the bases when there really isn't.
Dr. Tefera, what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with
what Dr. Davis is saying. And, you know, I think that just really being able to have a dialogue and sitting down, having parents to be able to sit down, because sometimes parents don't necessarily check in on older children per se around, hey, what are your thoughts? How are you doing? How are you feeling about what's going on? So if parents haven't had yet that opportunity to kind of slow down and do a check-in, I think that's really important for parents to do, and not assume that children aren't necessarily affected or that they're not gathering their own information from their social networks.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Tefera, how are children in low-income communities affected differently than children who, you know, might come from more affluent backgrounds?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking that, you know, some of the things that I named earlier, such as navigating childcare, parents who are basically frontline workers and needing to take public transportation or go out and work more often, leaving other family members to need to pull together to assist. Resources has been a big issue, whether it is internet, having Wi-Fi access, having laptops, and so having food. And so kind of your basic necessities that some of us take for granted, these are things that people are really struggling with during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask you the same question, Dr. Davis. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, there was a little interference. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same question about dealing with low income on top of everything else. Is it different how it affects low income children as compared to others?
You know, I think what Dr. Tefera was just saying is absolutely on the money. It is different because the families are already stressed, and so we're compounding that stress, and the basic necessities aren't being met, and so the little ones are struggling more because they already were struggling with not having enough to eat. The family is already struggling with not having the hardware that their little one needs, computers and other technology that they need to be able to participate in virtual learning, right? And so that makes it even, that much more difficult for kids to be able to have their creativity, active and be actively engaged in learning. They're more worried about themselves and their families, their moms, their brothers and sisters, because they see them stressed right with them in the home. There's no place to go to get away from that stress, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yes, they're more impacted, and it is different.
How do low-income families get access to the mental health assistance they might need to get through some of this, Dr. Tefera and then Dr. Davis?
Sure. I mean, I think that churches within the community, churches, schools, and additionally, if they have state insurance, I always recommend that families contact their member line and that they're able to access names and resources of providers that accept their insurance. And so I really think that just utilizing the resources that have traditionally been in place, but really needing to kind of lean in and perhaps do a little bit more advocacy and or, get access to case management services so that they're able to navigate the system.
Mm-hmm. So you're speaking from Chicago, Dr. Davis. You're in New York. Low-income families, how do they get access to mental health treatment if they need it?
It's a complex question, and I cannot in any way pretend to say that I have the answer. But some of the things that I am aware of are, the NYC Well initiative started by the mayor's offices, often a good place for folks to start if they don't already have access. I work for the Jewish Board, and it's an agency that has clinics throughout all 5 boroughs, and I work in the Harlem Child Development Center in particular. And so folks can reach out to us, and we can, if not, if we can't see them at our clinic, we can connect them to other Jewish Board clinics or other providers that are better able to meet their needs. But it is complex. It's not always so direct and easy. We know that there's a shortage of mental health providers in this country in general, and particularly for Black and brown families who want to be able to be seen by providers who understand what they're going through. It's extremely complicated to meet those needs in an quick and easy way. But there are some avenues.
Yeah. And I wonder on a national basis, and I'll start with you, Dr. Davis, and ask you to weigh in on this as well, Dr. Tefera. On a national basis, is it a problem for low-income families to get the kind of mental health help that they need, not only for the adults, but for the children?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, particularly for early childhood, but in general, yes, it's a problem because there just aren't enough trained professionals available. And so we do, as a country, need to think about how we're going to address this issue in a way that is paying attention to the problem on a broader scale than we are, and just by looking at small local communities. That's what I would say.
Dr. Tefera?
Absolutely, I agree. Mental health resources are limited, and there are not enough mental health resources or access to mental health resources. And particularly the locations that provide trained mental health professionals, provide counseling, those places are overwhelmed and particularly have very long waiting lists. And we were seeing a little bit of this even before the pandemic, and now it has really worsened since. And so absolutely, we as a country need to be thinking about how do we align with healthcare and recognize that mental health is a part of physical health, and really be able to increase resources in that area.
Dr. Davis, what advice would you give to people, we're in Philadelphia, who are looking to get the kind of advice they need to be able to help their children get through this period where mental health is very important because you're dealing with all kinds of stuff they just haven't seen before? What advice would you give?
That's a great question. Gosh, I think, really understanding or knowing what's available in your community is an important first step. And so I think it's going to vary for each community. And I think Dr. Tefera spoke about before, knowing, being connected to your church or your spiritual community, being connected to family and friends who can refer you. I think that they're just finding that right fit is difficult. I recently learned about an organization called Black Therapists Rock, participated in this summit on social justice and trauma this weekend, and I was just excited to learn about that particular network of providers. Duran Young, I want to shout out to her, started this organization so that folks can find providers, particularly Black folks can find providers who look like them, and so you can go to their website and see other providers that are available. But, I can't say for sure what's the one way to find it, but, there are a number of
options
groups or agencies that are putting, all the therapists together in one place for folks to find.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We're out of time, but I want to thank both of you for joining us this morning on WURD Radio. Dr. Nicole Tefera is a clinical psychologist, works primarily with children, adolescents, and their families in Chicago. Dr. Chandra Davis is a clinical psychologist who works primarily in early childhood with families and children from birth to 5 years in Harlem. I want to thank you both for joining us this morning on WURD.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. All right. It's a pleasure. So we're going to go to break. On the other side, we're going to do what's trending, and then it's right back to your calls. I'm Solomon Jones. This is WURD. We'll be right back.
Have you heard about City Council's plan to build more affordable housing, repair existing homes, create jobs, and support small business? The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will invest $400 million in Philly communities. Read about it at www.phlcouncil.com/NPI.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones.
Good morning.
Right now on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD. Circuits are busy. Here's what's trending.
Yo, that's crazy.
On Wake Up with WURD.
Vogue magazine became embroiled in a whitewashing controversy on Sunday when it tweeted photographs of its February cover star Kamala Harris. Two images of the U.S. Vice President-elect were released. One user called it a washed-out mess of a cover. The issue of lighting black skin properly in magazine editorials and on the screen has been an issue for years.
And the cops who traumatized a group of black children by handcuffing them and holding them face down on the ground at gunpoint in Aurora, Colorado this summer will not face any consequences for their action. The Aurora Police Department drew their guns on 4 black girls ranging in age from 6 to 17 last August on the incorrect suspicion that they were in a stolen car.
And as female coaches continue to open doors and make an impact within the NFL, history will be at hand. 6 of the 8 female coaches currently within the league will be on the sidelines for playoff teams, and for the first time in NFL Chronicle, opposing playoff teams will have women's coaches on their sidelines when the Washington football team hosts the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Saturday evening, and that is what's trending.
All right, that's what's trending right here on WURD Radio. And congratulations to those female coaches. Of course, the Washington football team already lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So either way, women won. So that's a good thing, Kawesa.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, man. I looked at that. I was like, ain't even playing on.
But you know who else lost yesterday? Pittsburgh. And lost this weekend. Pittsburgh lost, and kind of a shock because they started out red hot this season, and they lost to the Cleveland Browns. So I guess for those who know, the Cleveland Browns quarterback is on all of these commercials. Man, they got these commercials where he's like, his stadium is his house, and it's kind of funny. But obviously the ball could play a little bit too. So. Cleveland Browns win. Congratulations to them. Got to give a shout out to Pastor Waller because I know he's from Cleveland. I know he's happy. So we appreciate that. But of course the Eagles out, man. Our coach fired, like our team in tatters. How does this happen 3 years after the Super Bowl, Kawesa?
You know, I think, and several people kind of noted it already, but I don't really think that Coach Peterson had that much access to the players that he really needed to make some of those differences and some of those, you know, life-changing plays on the field and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that was part of it, and I think that, you know, unfortunately you got to part ways because it's just, you know, people not seeing eye to eye. But it is kind of crazy that they let, you know, Andy Reid stay for so long and he didn't give anybody a Super Bowl. So, I mean, you know, I just, it's sad. It is sad. I don't know what that now means, though, for Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts. If we don't get, you know, some people in the door, we might see Hurts leave. And so, you know, I'm just like, you know, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I feel like Jalen Hurts deserves the opportunity to be a starting quarterback. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. So I want to hear from you. Give me a call, 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. Let us know where you are on these various things we're talking about on this morning show. Of course, I cannot move on without talking about the fact that these cops in Aurora, Colorado, had these babies on the ground, man, and y'all don't get suspended. Y'all don't get nothing. Like, that's, come on, man. You know what I mean? That's wrong, Kawesa. That's wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong, you know, and I remember, I will never forget their screams. Like, I don't think, and I think that everybody who listened on the air that day when I was playing, you know, clips of that video, I mean, it got you to your core. Like, you know, you can't hear somebody screaming like that and it not bother you in some way. You know, I just actually late last night around like 9:30 or so, I did get a call back from the attorney that's representing the family. So hopefully we'll be having a conversation on Thursday with him. But it just, it broke my heart. And the fact that you're not charging them, and they're babies. They're our babies.
Yeah, man.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Just, y'all need to get, you know, get a suspension, get something. You know what I mean? That's just, come on. 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That is the number you can call to get in on the conversation right here at WURD Radio. Stacy from Philly is on line one. Go ahead, Stacy.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm calling about the early childhood. There's an organization, ChildLink, in Philadelphia. It's a nonprofit, and they help children and families with special needs. I used to be a special.
What's the name of it?
ChildLink.
ChildLink?
Yeah, ChildLink.
Okay. All right.
And families are able to have their children assessed. And I used to be a spiritual instructor before the pandemic. And what happened, I would go to the families to give them strategies to help their children. One of the mental pieces, I always like to use emotional tools like this, talking about emotions, those types of things. And depending on the child's needs, it's a team. It might be a speech therapist or a physical therapist, occupational therapist. But our goal is to help the families to help their children. And so, especially in the time that we're living in now, it's very hard for families to just navigate their life, this different world that we live in right now. But ChildLink organizations, they will come out to assess and to see what the needs are.
Okay, and what does it cost the families?
It's nothing. They and a family can and they get a referral. They can get a referral through ChildLink or their pediatrician. And a family only has to say, "I have a concern with my child," and they can automatically get tested. It's no money for the family, nothing like this. And what my role was, I spent an hour with the family, either going to the house, to the daycare, and provide those services.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there a website?
ChildLink, there is a website, and it's located at 1500 Market Street.
Yeah.
And their telephone number is 215-731-2100. and the coordinators can set up a meeting time with the family and, again, see what their needs are and do it from there.
Okay. All right. And they only help kids with special needs?
No, well, sort of. Because, like I said, special needs meaning they can have behavior issues. They can have speech issues. So it doesn't, it's not specifically, I had autistic children, just the whole range.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your call, and thank you for sharing that information this morning on WURD Radio. We appreciate it. Let's go to Brother Hurt from 29th and Girard on line 2. Go ahead, Brother Hurt.
Hey, Simon. God bless you. How you guys doing?
God bless
Simon,
you too, man.
The coach for the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
Can't beat the Cowboys. We took the black quarterback out the game. And not only that, when they lost that guy, he should be the offensive coordinator. He was the Indiana coach. That's when that team started going down. He was the man.
Yeah. You talking about Frank Wright?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Simon, have a wonderful week. God bless you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, brother. God bless you, too. Let's go to Andrea from Philly on line 3. Go ahead, Andrea.
Good morning, Solomon. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I was watching MSNBC this morning, and I was listening to a former FBI director, talk about how they were concerned about the possibility of not being able to secure the inauguration as far as protecting Congress and Biden during that election, and how white supremacists infiltrated the police. It made me think about, at this point, with all the gun violence that's going on in the city, as much as I used to be against gun ownership, I think now we as a community need to start researching that and possibly getting armed. Because what I'm seeing now with these police officers now being infiltrated by white supremacist groups, we can't rely on them for protection. In fact, they in turn, as you just announced with the previous story in Colorado with these children being held at gunpoint by police, where's the protection for us? Especially now, like, for example, just recently my car went down. I work in an area where I have to commute about 15 miles, almost out of the city. I now have to take public transportation to do that. So that means I have to get out very early in the morning, and I'm out there alone in the middle of the darkness waiting for a bus. So at any point, I'm a sitting duck. What I'm finding disturbing is that if I try to go to get a gun permit to carry in the city, there are blockades that are in place now where it's making it difficult to do that, whereas if I go to a county next door, if I live in a county like Montgomery or Bucks County, I can go and get a permit within 2 days. And I think that's totally unfair. I think at this point we need to start considering arming ourselves. And I know it's a sensitive subject because of the gun violence that's in the city, but I do believe that if people become registered gun owners and start learning about proper handling of that and further educating the community about that, I think that could help with subsiding that and reducing that violence, but at the same time being able to protect ourselves out here, because this is getting crazy. I'm listening to MSNBC, CNN, all these stories they're talking about where people you have officials, congressmen and senators who don't even feel safe going in, and they don't even trust each other at this point. Because now you have some of those members of the body talking about they bringing firearms into the Capitol. So if it's to that level, then, what am I to do, or any other person, especially black women, who have to go out here in this pandemic to take care of their families, feed their children, stand out on corners in the middle of the night in the darkness and early in the morning to try to get back and forth. And you possibly have another threat, not just a virus threat, but a threat of some nut coming up on them, rolling up on them while they stand at a bus stop.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and you've made your point, and I hear you, and I think that's an individual decision. And it's not a decision that I discourage, but I think it is an individual decision. I know that I'm very concerned about making sure that my home is protected, that my family is protected. And so I've done what I need to do in order to make that happen. But I think that's an individual decision. and it's one that I'm not opposed to. So I want to thank you for your call this morning on WURD. 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. That's the number you can call to get in. Of course, we got a whole lot that we got to deal with in our community, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in on today's show, including all of our guests. And there were many. Let's see, Dr. Delana Wardlaw and Dr. Elena McDonald, sports journalist Chris Murray, Congressman Brendan Boyle, CNN commentator Roxanne Jones, clinical psychologist Dr. Nicole Tafera and Dr. Chandra Davis, and now for super producer Kawesa Mathis and everyone here at WURD Radio, I am your host, Solomon Jones, saying stay tuned for Reality Check with Charles Ellison, and tune in tomorrow at 7 for more Wake Up with Word. Peace.